Angelou. When you learn, teach, and when you get, give. Hey everyone, welcome to Conversations with Verdel Jones. I'm your host, Verdel Jones. And being an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing conversations that inform and enlighten in the hopes that you learn something you may not have known. Remember, in the words of Maya Angelou, when you learn, teach, and when you get, give. I can't even tell you how excited I am today to bring you this episode of Conversations with Verdel Jones. We have an awesome guest, so we're going to get to that in a minute. But before we do that, I wanted to share a couple of things with everybody. Deli Teach is hosting another Write, Rhyme, and Recite Collective. We already picked the date. It's June 9th, 2019. We want to keep on doing this. We were able to give a poetry slam, actually 3 poetry slam scholarships to 3 graduating seniors and a total of $3,250. So next year we want to make it even bigger. We want to give more money to these students, and we're also adding a music scholarship. So there'll be the 3 poetry slam scholarships, and there'll also be 1 music scholarship. Applications for the poetry slam scholarships will be going out probably the beginning of the year. Again, the date is June 9th, so make sure you keep that date in your mind, mark it on your calendar. And we're always looking for sponsors. We want to give more next year, so we're looking for sponsors to help with the event and also the scholarships that we give the students. So if anybody's interested out there, you can contact me at verdeljones@deliteach.com, and that's DELITEACH.com, or you can give me a call. 516-289-4947. We had an awesome time. Probably on our next show, we'll show you a clip or some, a little promo we did that kind of highlights all the things that we did. We're also going to have authors again. So if there's any authors out there that would like to participate in the event, reach out to me at those contact numbers and email that I gave. Another thing I wanted to share with you, we know that the midterm elections are coming up. So Conversations with Verdel Jones is doing a Woman in Politics series leading up to the midterm elections. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Bruce for kind of giving me that idea. So I want to make sure that I gave him his props there. And on October 18th, we're going to have Taylor Raynor in the studio. She's running for assembly in the 18th district. We'll find out what that even actually is. What does an assembly person actually do? So we're going to have her on October 18th, 7 o'clock right here. And I'm also working on securing some other women in politics for our November 1st show. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So to kick off the Woman in Politics series, we have a special guest here today. She's a woman in politics who is running against the long-term Congressman Peter King. So in a few minutes, we're going to welcome Ms. Liuba Grechen Shirley to the desk to speak with me. I am so excited to have this conversation. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we will welcome Ms. Liuba Grechen Shirley.
Looking for a way to promote yourself or business? Do you need a quick and easy way for your clients or audience to see what you're about? MyMR Productions is the solution to your promotional needs. A video on a landing page can help increase conversions by 80% or more. And marketers who use video grow revenue 49% faster than non-video users. With our personal attention to detail, we will create a video that will help you promote yourself or business professionally and attract the attention of potential customers. 64% of consumers make a purchase after watching branded social videos, and an initial email with the video receives an increased click-through rate by 96%. We create videos for business owners, authors, speakers, and more. From storyboarding and voiceovers to editing, MyMR Productions will work with you to create a promotional video that will increase your visibility and generate revenue. Family is our foundation, and with MyMR Productions, our family is there for you. For a free consultation, contact us at myanmarproductions@gmail.com or call us at 516-289-4947.
Hello, welcome back. As you see, we have our special guest here, Ms. Liuba Grechen Shirley. She's a native Long Islander. I think 5 generations of your family living on Long Island in Amityville, New York. My husband's from Amityville, so shout out to Amityville. He's from Amityville, and then he moved to Central Islip, and then we met in high school sweethearts in Central Islip. You know, the story goes on, but he was originally from Amityville. I think born in Amityville. So, so I know you founded a grassroots group called New York 2nd District Democrats, and this was to engage Long Islanders in the political process. And it not only attracted Democrats, but you had independents and some Republicans also who wanted to see new leadership in the 2nd District of New York as far as congressional leadership. You hold your MBA with specializations in management, economics, social innovation from NYU, the Stern School of Business, and your BA in politics and Russian from NYU as well. So we are so happy to have you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good, good, good. So I gave a little overview about yourself, but if you could maybe give us some insight to what has brought you to this place at this time, running against a long-term Congressman, Peter King.
I had had enough. If you had told me, you know, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that I'd be running for office, I would have thought that you were crazy, to be honest.
Really?
I've never run for office before. I'm not a career politician. I work in economic development. I have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. My mom is a public school teacher. My grandparents are immigrants. My husband is an immigrant who just became a U.S. citizen and cast his first vote for me. And running for office was not something I was thinking about doing, but we have representatives who are consistently voting to hurt working people in our district and across the country.
Right.
And Peter King's been in office since I was 12, and it's a long time.
It is.
We have more than half of our representatives are millionaires, and they do not understand how the policies that they enact affect our lives.
Absolutely.
And I just had enough, and I wanted to make sure that we had a representative who was actually listening to the constituents. I don't know if you know the story, but after I started this grassroots group, Peter King came out in support of the Muslim ban, and I called a number of groups across Long Island. We organized a protest, and I called Peter King's office that afternoon. I said, I want to come in and speak. And they told me to come in at 3:30 in the afternoon, and by the time I got there, they had locked the doors and sent the staff home. And we had 400 people march, and I called and I got a meeting with him only because we had 400 people there. And he told the news that he spoke with a leader of a resistance group, not a constituent, but a leader of a resistance group. And I asked if he would hold a town hall. I said, I'm one of hundreds of thousands of constituents who want to speak with you. And he told me that a town hall would diminish democracy, that he's on the news all the time, and that everybody knows what he thinks about the issues. And it's time for Washington to listen to what we think about the issues.
It's so true. I mean, the interesting thing about that is you hear statistics on certain issues, and overwhelmingly, America, you know, selects something or wants something to happen, and Congress does the complete opposite. But the majority of people want certain things. So it's just very interesting how that kind of works, and so we're going to talk about campaign finance reform. Exactly, because that has a lot to do with why these things happen. So we're going to talk about that. But you have 2 children.
I do.
So and I can only imagine that you've been very, very busy running for Congress, and you still have your 9 to 5?
No.
Oh, okay. I was getting ready to say this is your 9 to 5.
No,
this is more than
my 24/7.
Right, it's 24/7.
Running for Congress is a full-time job.
Right. So how do you balance that work and family life?
It's difficult. It's very difficult, and this also goes back to campaign finance reform, because if you had publicly financed elections, it would be a lot easier to juggle work and family, and you would have more working Americans running for office.
Right, because how can you not work and run for office?
Yeah, that's exactly the point. Most working Americans can't afford to take a year off or a year and a half off of your life and work 24/7. And I mean, other than that fact, it's you're working 24/7. You're trying to balance your children, but the amount of time you spend raising the money necessary to run a campaign. So just raising the money is a full-time job. Then getting out and talking to constituents is a full-time job, and then having 2 babies is a full-time job.
Right.
So it's difficult. And
It
I
is.
mean, there's only one other woman running in the country, across the country, that has a child 2 or younger.
Oh, wow.
It's a very difficult task, and most people don't even attempt it.
Yeah, who could? I mean, it's like you said, it's very, very challenging, and you have more and more women that see, like as you said, they see a need, enough is enough, and they make that decision to run, or they think about it, and then they have to kind of weigh. You know,
my children are my biggest hesitation to make the decision to run for Congress.
Yeah.
I mean, I kept thinking, how am I going to be able to juggle it all?
Right.
And I kept looking to other representatives who had done that, who you know, had small children, and there are very few.
Yeah.
And it's
Wow,
really, there is
that's
no book
interesting.
to say, you know, this is what running for Congress is like. You don't really know until you start to do it.
Right.
And I mean, this is why I actually put in a request to the Federal Election Commission to request to be able to use some of my campaign funds that I'm raising on childcare.
Right.
And to be honest, I was shocked. Hillary Clinton wrote a 3-page letter in support. 24 representatives, including Maxine Waters and John Lewis,
wow.
wrote in support, and they approved it. It was unanimous, bipartisan. And even Fox News said it was the one bipartisan thing they could agree on.
Right.
But it's how you get more women in Congress. It's how you
right.
get more people of color, more people from diverse socioeconomic
right.
backgrounds. We have, right now, our government is not reflective of our society.
It's the Kavanaugh. Yeah, I mean, on the Republican side, it was very interesting to see the difference between the Republican side and the Democratic side. What the makeup of the individuals were sitting on the Judiciary Committee.
Yeah, we're
you know?
missing critical voices.
Yeah.
We're missing the voices of people who understand at a visceral level what it's like not to have paid family leave. We're missing the voices of young parents who are concerned about where they're going to send their kids to school.
Right.
We're missing the conversations about quality, affordable childcare for everyone. These are conversations we need to be having.
Yeah.
And we need to change the makeup of our government right now.
It's very interesting to see. You know, and this wasn't something I was going to talk about, but term limits. You know, I don't understand why don't we have term limits for, what's the rationale for not having term limits? I mean, you know, there's some people in Congress that, you know, have been there forever. And I'm talking on both sides, Democrat and Republican. You need those fresh ideas. And you know, one of the things is, I wonder if the politicians that have been there for a while start out with the same ambitions as you may, and then they get entrenched in how you know, DC works, and then they just become, you know, complacent, you know, for lack of a better phrase.
I think we do need term limits, and I think the easiest way to get to people not being in Congress for decades is campaign finance reform, because the power of incumbency is so strong that when you're in office for 25 years, like Peter King, you have that time to build up a $3 million war chest. And most people don't want to put the time and energy in to raise the funds necessary to take on somebody who has a $3 million war chest.
Right. So let's talk about campaign. Let's talk about that right now. We might as well.
All right.
Because, you know, we tease my husband all the time because he talks about money and politics, and I think he's out there with the picket sign, you know, in the House, you know, take money out of politics.
He's 100% correct.
And how can we take the lobbyists and, you know, all those interest groups that fund these politicians? How can we do that?
So this is, I mean, the second I get elected, I will be fighting for campaign finance reform. For too long, regular Americans' voices have been drowned out by corporate donations, by special interests. Before I even announced my candidacy, I pledged not to take a dime of corporate PAC money, and I haven't. Our average contribution is $103.
Okay.
In the first 2 months of our campaign, we had more individual contributors than anyone who has ever run against King in his 25 years in office. And we're not taking corporate PAC money. On the other hand, Peter King has almost 50% of his contributions comes from corporate PACs. He told Newsday this was a phony issue brought up by somebody who doesn't have business support, which is ridiculous because he's not talking about small businesses who are growing our economy.
Not the mom and pop stores.
Not the mom and pop stores. When you're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the real estate industry, you have no incentive to solve the affordable housing crisis on Long Island.
That's very true.
When you're taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the pharmaceutical companies that are directly responsible for our children dying from opioids, that's who you're responsible for.
That's who you're right, exactly.
And until you get money out of politics, your voices will not be heard.
Absolutely.
So this campaign has been grassroots from the very beginning. It's about small dollar contributions. It's about meeting with people all across the district and listening to people in the district.
And I will say you have been everywhere.
I have been everywhere.
All over the district. We had some people knocking on our door, talking about you. This was early on. This was when you were in the Democratic, the primary. And, we had someone that, knocked on our door and, signing a petition. And, we were like, who? Who is this?
We knocked on more than 10,000 doors this last weekend alone.
Oh, wow.
Every time we knock on someone's door, people are like, oh my God, it's you. No one has ever come to our door before. They get really excited.
Right.
For a long time, people have been ignored. We haven't had a representative who goes out and knocks on your door. I love talking to people. I have the best conversations going and talking to people at their door. You get to hear what they're worried about, what they're concerned about, what they want representatives to actually fight for.
Do. So speaking of Congress, just give people an example of what Congress actually does. They make the laws, but because I hear that they're on the phone raising money most of the time.
Unfortunately, that's true a lot of the time.
Right. And then you see that there's battles between the congressmen and women, Democrat, Republican, and some things don't seem to be getting done. So what is Congress? What do they do, and why is it so important for us as constituents within the district? Why is it so important for us to understand that?
Yeah, so what Congress is supposed to do is pass the laws and actually fight for their constituents. So when you elect a representative and you send them to Washington, they're supposed to understand what issues are most important to you, and they're supposed to fight for you. They're supposed to be your voice at the table. And you're right, it's become very partisan. Democrats on one side, Republicans on the other, and not a lot of conversation in between. And that needs to change. But the power of Congress, a lot of people don't realize how much Congress affects our lives. Peter King and our representatives voted to take health care away from 74,000 people in our district last year. That's 10% of the district. They voted to take maternity coverage away from 13 million American women at a time when we have the worst maternal mortality rate in the developed world. Women are dying in childbirth. Black women are dying at 4 times the rate as white women, and these are conversations we're not having. They pass laws, the tax bill. We just saw a Republican tax bill that is giving permanent tax cuts to corporations and the top 1%, while half of Long Islanders will see our taxes go up. Everything that Congress does affects our daily lives. We have a student loan crisis. Students are graduating with hundreds of thousands of dollars of school loan debt. We have a criminal justice crisis. We have, we have a third of people who are in prison are there because of nonviolent crimes. Congress is responsible for these laws, and Congress needs to actually start to work for Americans, working Americans, not just their corporate donors. We don't have proper gun reform, and that's because we have representatives who are bought and owned by the NRA.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. It's just amazing that this is allowed to go on, but the people who are in Congress benefit from it. They really do. It's just it just really blows my mind that you go into in public service and you're not serving the public.
You can't serve the public when you're counting on corporate donors. That's who you're serving. You cannot serve the public because the public is not financing your elections. If you want to get elected again, you're voting a certain way. When you vote Peter King has voted to let coal companies dump waste into our water, and he's voted to gut the Environmental Protection Agency. He has voted to take health care away from 10% of the district when he's taking hundreds of thousands of dollars from the healthcare industry. It's all tied in. So unless you elect somebody who is actually listening to you, you don't have a voice in Congress.
Yeah, and it's just very encouraging to see women getting into politics. That's why I wanted to do, women in politics, because there's so many women that are stepping up and taking on that charge. Like the woman who's running for Congress in the Bronx. That story to me was, and she beat a 20, the guy was in Congress for like 20 years, I think, in that district, but she was able, through grassroots efforts, to overcome that. So it can be done. Oh, it can be done. It can be done. It's just something that, people have to be willing to do and step out to take that risk.
When I first said I was running against Peter King, everyone said you're crazy. He's been in office for 25 years.
Absolutely.
And we outraised him last quarter without a dime of corporate PAC money.
Wow.
We, Senator Gillibrand has endorsed, Senator Elizabeth Warren has endorsed, Emily's Listag. The Cook Report just moved us up for the first time in 12 years and said that we're the first real challenge King has faced in decades.
Wow.
So everyone who thought I was crazy, I mean, we have union support, we have support from all of our local elected officials. This is the year to unseat Peter King, and it's because it's been a grassroots movement. We have 3 offices across the district.
Okay.
We have one in Massapequa, we have one in Bayshore, we have one in Central Islip.
Okay.
Central Islip has never seen a congressional campaign office.
Right.
And
oh, that's awesome.
We've got thousands of volunteers.
Okay.
So, and they're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're people who've never been involved in politics before. That's how you unseat someone who's been in office for 25 years.
Right.
And it can be done.
It can be done. So that brings me to this, because in our district, and Bobby, can you just show what our actual district is, what District 2 is for us? So while he's showing that, I'm just going to ask, a great number of people voted for Donald Trump in our district. So why should they vote for you in November, and what would you say to those people to encourage them to vote for you?
There are a lot of people in our district who voted for Donald Trump. There are a lot of people who believed that Donald Trump was going to be a new voice.
Right.
Somebody different, somebody who is fighting for working people, somebody who would take the economy seriously.
Yeah.
And the reality is, what has happened under Donald Trump's administration, when you have tax cuts on corporations, you have more money in the hands of corporate executives, and it does not trickle down.
No, it trickled down.
When you have tax cuts for working Americans, you have more money in the hands of everyday Americans. We go out.
And they spend that money.
We buy groceries.
That's
we start businesses. We go shopping. We're the job creators. We build the economy. We need to make sure that we're actually building the economy. And there are a lot of Republicans supporting us because they're amazed that we're actually talking about the issues and how these issues affect their bottom line.
Right.
And I mean, the fact that we have almost half of Americans who are in bankruptcy are there because of medical bills. 75% of those people had health insurance.
Right.
They just couldn't afford the co-pays and the deductibles and the premiums. And this is why I'm fighting for improved and expanded Medicare for all.
Right.
It makes economic sense. The middle class is shrinking. Inequality is increasing.
Absolutely.
People are working 3 jobs just to make ends meet, and people are dying because they can't afford to see a doctor.
Right.
We have the wealthy is making so much money, and working Americans do not have a fair shot. And the price of housing has gone up drastically. In my lifetime alone, the cost of education, wages have stayed stagnant.
Right, stagnant.
And so when I'm talking to those people who voted for Donald Trump, a lot of them voted because they had hope. They wanted to make change. They wanted to see somebody who was not going to be a career politician, who was going to come in with some business skills and shake things up.
Right.
And that hasn't happened.
Right. And I think, just to kind of reiterate your point, you go out and you meet with people and you talk to them, and you can really kind of see what they're going through, and they understand that you're listening to them and you hear what they're saying. So that makes a big difference. It really does. When you're talking one-on-one and you explain what the issues are, I think people are more receptive to it. But you have to have people that go out and speak to people.
That's my favorite part,
right.
honestly, of this campaign. We have roundtables and meet and greets, and we have roundtables on different topics, and so many people, so many community members who are already doing this important work in the community sit down and they explain what they're doing. They explain who they're working with. They explain what help they need from the federal government.
Right.
And I've learned so much from the community. And that's what this job is about. It's about building coalitions and listening to people, and then going down to Washington and fighting for them.
Fighting for that. So how does that work when you get elected? Right, we're going to be positive. How? What do you do? What does that look like for someone? Because don't they live in Washington, and then they what does that look like?
You basically are in the district.
Right.
So you're down in Washington usually Monday through Thursday, and then you're in the district usually on the weekends. And then there's about a week that you're in the district.
I know, because they're off a lot. Not a lot, but they're
not off. They're actually just their working periods in the district.
Got it. Okay.
The schedule is the craziest schedule I've ever seen. Just running. So once you get there, no, but you're always. I mean, you're literally
always
working
on
7 days a week.
Right. Exactly.
And it's just a matter of whether or not you're working in D.C. or if you're working in the district.
Right. That's I mean, it's really exciting, and like I said, I'm just so happy that women are stepping up to the plate and and really getting involved. But with our news cycle, with the politics as they are today, people are discouraged. They are exhausted. I know, my husband watches CNN all the time. I just walk out of the room because I can't take it anymore. So what would you, but I'm still going to vote, but there are some people who really just are turned off by it all. So what can we do to encourage people to stay somewhat engaged and come out to vote in November?
So the powers that be want people to feel that their voices don't matter,
that
their vote doesn't matter.
Yeah.
There's voter suppression in this country, and that needs to change, but we need to make sure that everyone understands that your voice matters, your vote matters, and if you don't vote, you don't have a say. And the most important job in a democracy is that of an informed citizen. Everyone needs to be involved, to get engaged. After the election, my mom, who's 64 years old, voted every election that she could since she was 18, who's an educator. She said, that's it, my vote doesn't matter. She was so disheartened. She had that exact same feeling. She said, twice in your lifetime, somebody won the popular vote and lost the presidency. I'm not voting anymore. And then I ran for Congress. She had a different tune.
She had to vote.
But that's the only way that you change the political system. The powers that be want you to stay out of politics because that's how they stay in power. That's why we don't have campaign finance reform. That's why we don't have, we need to re-implement the pre-clearance and the Voting Rights Act. I mean, we need to make it easier to vote in this country.
It's not harder.
But we need to make people understand that you need to have a say. You need to have your seat at the table, because the only way we're going to change this government and make sure that we have representatives that are actually reflective of our society is to have more voices at the table. When you have more voices at the table, you have a more equitable society.
Absolutely, and you have reflective of what the country is too. I mean, that's another thing that if you look at, and you mentioned it, you look at the face of Congress, and it really doesn't reflect our country.
No. If we want to hear different conversations at the table, we need to make sure that we're loud enough on the ground.
That's right. So we talked a little bit about healthcare, and I just want to go back to that for a minute, because you had mentioned Medicaid for all, Medicare for all. What does that mean? My husband, he's a little bit more savvy than I am when it comes to the healthcare, because to me, with the Affordable Care Act, I really didn't understand, and I'm fortunate and blessed that we have healthcare through our employers. But what does that mean for your average person when you look at single payer, for example? What does that mean? What does that look like? And how does that kind of work with individuals?
So right now we still have about 30 million Americans who are not insured. Millions more who are underinsured. And I've got to tell you, every conversation I have with somebody, they have a healthcare horror story. I spoke with 2 moms recently who have been fighting to make sure that their children can get access to a therapist. And they weren't able to. They talked to 65 different therapists, this one mother, and everyone either didn't take her insurance or wasn't taking a new patient. And so now both of them are actually paying out of pocket $1,200 a month. There are too many people who cannot access health care.
Who can afford that?
When I knock on doors, I get told regularly that people are making the decision between whether or not they buy their groceries or their prescription medicine. Improved and expanded Medicare for all is actually much more cost effective. Right now we spend 1/3 of the money that we spend on healthcare is in administrative costs. And a lot of doctors won't even deal with your insurance companies because they don't have the time. There are too many different insurance companies, and until you have a not-for-profit healthcare system, it's a very simple question. Do you value the lives of Americans, or do you value the profits of corporate executives? When you have a for-profit healthcare industry, you have not only do you have an incentive, you have an imperative that you have to go make money for your shareholders. So Americans lose out. The Koch brothers recently put out a study. We all know the Koch brothers tried desperately to prove that it wouldn't make sense for our country. Their study proved that it would actually save $2 trillion over 10 years to move to improved and expanded Medicare for all. We're already paying for it. People can't afford their premiums, their co-pays, their deductibles.
It adds up.
And we're the only developed country in the world that doesn't have access to universal health care. People are dying because they can't see a doctor. Almost 50% of diabetics skip their insulin because the cost of insulin has gone up it's tripled in I think the last 10 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. It's not it's a right. Healthcare is a right.
Healthcare is a basic human right. And
it's
we
a basic
fight for
human right. Yeah, exactly. So I thank you for that clarification, because it is confusing. And I think a lot of times too, what happens is, these things are thrown out and people don't really understand what they mean and how it impacts their lives. So thank you for that clarification. Going back to our district though, our district is a very diverse district, very, very diverse, but it is very, very segregated.
Yes.
It's a segregated district. So how would you be able to work with all constituents to bring about positive outcomes for all within our district?
This is the reason that we have 3 offices, because we want to make sure that we have a presence in different areas of our community.
Right.
We are one of the most segregated places in the country.
We sure are.
It's amazing. And we don't have a right now. Our representative doesn't listen to different aspects of our community. Peter King came out to a forum and actually told everybody that that he was boycotting the NFL, that he wouldn't support Black Lives Matter, that he has a black friend, so it's okay, and that he's colorblind.
This was a few weeks ago, right?
This was a few weeks
NAACP,
ago.
I think.
At the NAACP hosted it.
Right,
A woman came
right.
up to me afterwards and said he invalidated every person in this room.
Yeah.
There are conversations on, the history of racism in this country that we need to start addressing. We have a mass incarceration problem. Black and white people use marijuana at similar rates, yet Black people are incarcerated at much higher rates. 25% of Black children have had a parent in prison versus 4% of white children.
Right.
These are conversations that we need to have. We need to get rid of private prisons. We need to start talking about getting rid of mandatory minimums. We need criminal justice reform. And there are issues that affect people all across the community that we're not talking about. I mentioned maternity care and maternal mortality rate. Black women are dying at 4 times the rate. This has been statistically proven that it's not about education levels
or
income
income,
levels. It's about basic racism and doctors not
it's
trusting
the level
Black
of
women.
Care, right?
And
look at Serena Williams.
Exactly. And that needs to change.
Exactly.
So the best thing that we can do, that I can do as a representative, is to make sure that I'm in all of our communities, that I'm talking to all of our constituents, and that we're having these conversations.
Yeah.
I mean, these are issues that affect people all across the district. And I knock on doors in Wyandanch and Wheatley Heights and in North Amityville, and we're talking about jobs a lot of the time. A lot of the concerns people have are jobs. How do we get good paying jobs here? How do we have affordable housing? And most of them don't know who Peter King is. Every time I knock on doors, honestly, most places across the district, people don't know who Peter King is.
Wow.
And if they do, they've heard his name, but they couldn't tell you anything about him because he's not present.
Yeah.
He doesn't leave Massapequa and Seaford.
Right.
And people don't know what he stands for.
Right.
So
that's a comfortable space for him. Those spaces are comfortable.
And I want to be the most accessible representative this district has ever had. I want to be there to represent people.
Right. I belong to the Wheatley Heights Civic Association, and I know you're going to be there on Tuesday. I believe Tuesday coming up. I can't go. I have a show that I need to do, but we have invited him to come. He's been in office for 20-something years.
25 years.
But he hasn't come to our Civic Association. That's Wheatley Heights is a unique area in our district. I think we're in the top 10 wealthiest areas of Black individuals is in Wheatley Heights, and that kind of shocked me. So we have a couple of, so we're not a monolith, but so for him to ignore that type of power that our little community has is, it's not fair to us.
So Peter King has been able to ignore most of this district. I call it the 3 Bs. He goes to Boy Scout meetings.
Yes, he does.
He
I've
goes
seen
to
those.
baseball games, and he goes to this one bagel shop in Seaford.
Okay.
And he takes a few photos, and he says, I talked to the real Americans today.
Right, yeah.
The real Americans are all across the district. He has not had to campaign in a very long time. He's now,
That's
because
true.
he's nervous that we're running a real campaign, he was at my local grocery store. He showed up with 4 police officers to shake hands and talk to people because, God forbid, someone ask a real question and he needs security. He goes places with security. I'm in that grocery store 3 times a week with 2 toddlers and, no makeup and regular clothes, and I talk to people while I've got 2 kids running in different directions. It goes to show you how out of touch he is with the community.
Yeah.
You can't. He's been able to ignore the district because he just keeps winning because he hasn't faced a serious
And the
challenge.
thing is, we were talking a little bit, my husband and myself, about the gerrymandering that goes on. So we lost our district, or part of our district, lost Steve Israel. I mean, he's no longer a congressman, but he just like, he disappeared from our district because of the gerrymandering that goes on. You know, how do we? I didn't really want to talk about that, but it was just something that really struck me as, this is a way to divide and conquer.
Gerrymandering is a way that the powerful stay in power.
Absolutely.
It's how they carve out certain aspects of a
so they cut up our district.
Exactly.
Right.
The good thing is, though, that we actually have a Democratic registration advantage. When the district was redrawn in 2012, we have 6,500, we have an additional 6,500 Democrats in the district.
Okay.
In 2012, a woman named Vivian Falcone ran. She didn't really campaign. She didn't raise a lot of money. She got 42% of the vote.
Oh, wow.
Because it was an Obama year. Because Democrats came out in droves.
They came out, okay.
In our state primary that we just saw a few weeks ago, which was on a Thursday, the number of Democrats that came out in Suffolk County was more than triple. Democrats are fired up this year. If we get the Democrats to turn out in the presidential year to come out in the midterms, we win. But we also have support from independents and Republicans. Peter King is vulnerable. This is the year we unseat him.
This is the year. So we talked a little bit about Black and brown communities within the district. What do you see as some of the issues? And you talked about some of them, but what do you see as the issues, and how would you address those issues?
We have a history of redlining on Long Island. We have underfunded public schools. If you were born in Massapequa or you're born in Amityville, you have a very different type of education. And your zip code should not determine the resources that your school gets.
And a lot of times that's what it is.
It's exactly what it is. We need to make sure that we have equitably funded public schools, equitably and adequately funded public schools. We need to make sure that we have more teachers of color. One of the things that I hear all the time is that a lot of Black teachers get jobs in the city because they can't get jobs out here.
What is that about? I belong also to a group, Black Long Island. Felicia Moss and Billy Moss, they started that Facebook group. And one of the things that we are, being an educator, we're trying to get more people that look, especially in Amityville. I mean, that's a really non-diverse, it's a diverse district, but the faculty is not diverse. They just hired 30-something teachers, and I don't think there were any Black teachers that were hired.
When you have students who don't see teachers that look like them, that affects them. It affects the way that they learn. It affects the way that they grow up. You need to see people that look like you. It's the same reason that little girls need to see women in Congress.
That's right.
Black children need to see Black teachers. And I would work with our school board, with our local education department, to make sure that there are incentives to make sure that we're actually hiring teachers of color.
And it's not that hard to do.
It's not. It's
you can go to HBCUs and do job fairs and things like that.
Exactly.
You know, and those are the conversations that really need to happen. You know, education is a big piece, and like you said, your zip code determines what quality of education you're going to have. How would you work with school districts in the areas that are lacking, you know, sufficient, and not to say that the teachers are not working hard in those places, because most of them are, but what is it to kind of make that shift where you actually have quality education for all students?
Teachers need better resources. My mom teaches at Western Suffolk BOCES, and she spends her own money on school supplies, on making sure that her classroom has what it needs.
Wow.
And I mean, I've talked to teachers in Wyandanch who spend their own money on school supplies. We need to make sure that our teachers are being paid appropriately. We need to make sure that they have the resources that they need. Right now we have teachers who are forced to teach just to the test, and students are missing out on the opportunity to learn and be really involved in school. We have kids who are, you know, in school all day and then working at night. This is another thing when I talk about making sure that our working families are properly, that they have a fair shot at being able to build better lives for themselves and their families. That's how you change it. It all connects. So we need to make sure that parents have access to good quality, affordable, good quality jobs that pay well, so that their kids can actually go to school and not have to work. Because I've talked to people, and healthcare. But I've talked to people kids who are working, who are in school all day and then work until late in the evening, and they don't have time to do their homework. They don't have time to go to after-school programs and job training programs. We need to make sure that students can be students and fully enjoy school, and we need to support working families to do that. But we need to make sure that our schools are equitably funded.
Yeah, there's so many different pieces that Congress can really, work on to improve, improve the life of Americans, basically.
Our administration is trying to siphon funding away from public schools to charter schools.
Yeah.
They're trying to siphon money away from public schools to buy guns, to arm teachers.
Right.
So we're asking our teachers to be social workers and teachers and now to be security guards.
Yeah.
They don't get paid enough for that.
No, they
it's
don't.
It's ridiculous.
No. The minute that happens, I'm out. I mean, So speaking of guns,
Segue. It's a good segue.
I work in a school, and I was never really, when Columbine happened, I was working in a school. I remember my mother-in-law saying, "I don't want you going to work anymore." And I'm like, it's fine. I'm all right. Nothing's, I'm good. It's not going to happen here, and that was how many years ago?
19.
Yeah. So now, it happens more and more and more where you have these mass shootings and you have them in schools more and more. So I'm still not nervous because this is what I do. But we've put in a lot of safety measures in our district. I mean, our superintendent is really big on safety and making sure that all of our students and faculty and staff are secure. But there's two things really. There's the mental health aspect of what's going on with these mass shootings, but then there's the gun reform aspect. I think both of these things need to be addressed equally, but what would you say as far as gun reform we need to take a look at?
Yes, we need universal background checks. That's the first thing. 90% of Americans, no loopholes.
Right.
I mean, Peter King likes to say that he's good on gun policy.
Yep.
The reality is he voted against background checks and gun shows. So you can walk into a gun store, fail a background check, and go to a gun show and buy that gun legally.
Right.
That needs to change. We need real universal background checks. Peter King actually supports friends and family being able to transfer gun ownership without background checks. That's effectively a straw purchase. We have, more than 150,000 children have experienced a school shooting since Columbine. If you're like me and you graduated high school before Columbine, you never experienced a lockdown drill. You do now as a teacher.
Yes.
My mom actually called me a few months ago from her classroom crying at her desk in the middle of a lockdown drill because she had to lock her students out in the hallway.
Right.
We're traumatizing children. We're traumatizing teachers. There's a gun song to get through a lockdown drill to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for kindergartners. What are we doing to our children? We need to ban assault weapons. These are military-style assault weapons. They should be in the hands of our military, not in the hands of civilians. We need a real assault weapons ban because right now our former assault weapons ban was really an accessories ban. If you changed an accessory, you could buy that gun legally. We need to ban bump stocks. We need to ban high-capacity magazines. You can 100% support the Second Amendment and 100% support common sense gun reform. Peter King put his name on a March for Our Lives rally in Farmingdale and didn't show up. He went down to Met spring training in Florida instead of sitting down with our students. And I know a lot of those students. I met with them, and they were very upset. We need someone who will actually work with our students and make sure that we have common sense gun reform. And as much as school shootings are increasing, it's still 4% of gun violence in this country. Children in our country are 16 times more likely to die from gun violence than in other developed countries. Black children are 10 times more likely to die than white children. We need common sense gun reform. And until we have representatives who are not bought and owned by the NRA, there's nothing that will change about that. And Peter King continues to support Republican leadership that is bought and owned by the NRA. So none of these votes even come up.
And you have domestic violence. Suicides, all of this has to do with, not all, some of this is
you're
due
100%
to
correct.
gun violence. Right.
You can have a history of domestic violence and still legally purchase a gun.
Right. It's, and I really don't understand. I grew up, my grandfather had, he had a rifle, he had a handgun, he had all of these things, and it was not, it's not a problem. I mean, he would actually, he actually had it in like a shoebox. It wasn't like, we just didn't, we didn't want to touch that, he would show us, and he was actually a member of the NRA.
So was my grandfather. My grandfather had a rack of rifles in his room, and he was a member of the NRA. He would not be now. If he saw what the NRA has become, my grandfather would be the first person up there burning his NRA card and making sure that he was fighting against it.
So it's just how we've kind of shifted to a society that's so gun. I mean, we always were, but it just seems that it's getting into the hands of individuals, and that brings me to the next point: mental health.
I just want to add something here. I had a roundtable with religious leaders, faith leaders. The thing that surprised me the most out of that conversation was that most of them have a gun in their church. And some have panic buttons because when they're out there preaching, they see the doors. And they're concerned about people coming in. It's not just schools. It's churches. It's concerts.
It's movie theaters.
It's movie theaters. And we're not changing this. And yes, in terms of mental health, this is again why we need improved and expanded Medicare for all.
Healthcare,
because people can't access therapists.
No, they cannot.
One mother that I met actually slept on her daughter's bedroom floor to make sure that her daughter would be okay because she couldn't find a therapist that would take her insurance and see her daughter. And she's also paying out of pocket now.
Oh my goodness. And we see, you know, being in a school, I've been in a school district for 24 years, and the increase in mental health issues for our children has exponentially increased. You see it. We need, you know, they need those services. They need to be in therapy. They need the support. We need to start at an early age. You know, I'm a big proponent of really having programs within our school districts starting at a very early age to teach them coping skills, because you know, this generation of kids, they need that with all the things that they see. You know,
this also goes back to paid family leave and quality affordable childcare, because 1 in 4 women will go back to work 10 days after giving birth. To put a 10-day-old baby in the care of a daycare center, a childcare center, it's a public health crisis. We are not giving our children the best start at life, and then people can't afford to send their kids to daycare. It costs more to send your infant to daycare than it costs to send your teenager to a 4-year public college.
It's like, why work?
Do you know that this is the first time in 40 years that the number of women who are choosing to stay home is actually increasing, because it makes economic sense. We need to make sure that we're supporting families. We need to make sure that there are mental health services. We need to make sure that children have quality, affordable childcare, and we need to make sure that they have the resources that they need.
So we're going to switch gears a little bit, because I want to know what motivates you, right? So what would you say is Liuba's theme song to get you motivated to be in the trenches, to to fight this fight?
My theme song. I don't know. This Girl Is on Fire is something I listen to a lot. I've got to say, we joke that we listen to Cardi B and Moana basically in our office, because Cardi B gets everybody revved up and ready to go.
Yes, she does.
And I have a 4-year-old who plays Moana nonstop, and kind of goes back and forth between the two.
So and before we were off air, I was saying that I was singing This Girl's on Fire. As we were coming here over to the studio, I was singing that song. So now, definitely when I hear that song, I will think of you.
Thank you. It's a good song to listen to. It gets you revved up
it's empowering, you know. And the other question I had, there's so many topics, there's so many issues. How do you keep up with these issues? I see you majored in politics, right? Political science. So you have that background, but you're able to speak on these topics, in depth. How do you prep yourself to know about this stuff?
An obsession with the issues. I don't know. I mean, I've always been politically active. You see this scar here. My mom, when I was 3 years old, had me working with her at Maxine Postal's office, stuffing envelopes to fight Shoreham. And when I heard on News 12 that Shoreham had closed, I was so excited. I ran out and I put my hand through the door. I went to push it open. My mom was in the backyard, and I threw my hand through the glass door. That's my first scar. But I mean, this is what my family talked about politics at dinner. This was normal, and I grew up talking politics, and this is what I love, because what's interesting is that I always say politics is personal, and for the first time, I feel like people are really getting that.
Yeah,
because
it really is.
We had a roundtable the other day on disability issues, and this woman came out, and she was one of the mothers who was telling me about trying to get her daughter access to a therapist. And after the roundtable, I was talking to her, and she said her mother had died of pancreatic cancer that morning. And
my goodness.
I started to cry, and I said, "Why are you here?"
Oh my gosh.
She said, "Because you're the first person who's actually talking about this issue, and I've been fighting for my daughter for so long. I had to come."
Wow.
And that's when I say that politics is personal. It affects every aspect of our lives. So the fact that somebody would come out on the day that their mother died to be there to advocate for their child, it hit me. I mean, these
that
issues,
really hits home.
I mean, I cried for half an hour after that. And before I went to my next event, it was so emotional. It was the first time I really cried on the campaign trail. But I mean, it's important. These issues affect everyone's lives. So really this is my passion. I don't know how I keep up.
Right, you just do because
I do because this is what matters.
Right,
this is what matters to our country. This is what matters to people in our district, in our community. And if you're not fighting for these issues, you're basically giving up your power to people who are
not fighting for those issues.
Fighting for you, making your life a lot harder.
Right, exactly. So, you know, we hear the term blue wave. We've been hearing it for a while now. Meaning that either that the Senate and or Congress will flip. What is your take on the blue wave, and how do you think the Democrats are going to do in November?
I think the Democrats are definitely going to take back the House, but reporters keep saying blue wave or pink wave, which I find really interesting.
Okay.
And they keep asking me what I'm part of. And
both.
Both, but I think the more interesting thing is just how many working Americans are running for Congress this year. How many people who don't come from political families, who don't come from wealthy families, who have diverse socioeconomic backgrounds, but who genuinely care about these issues and couldn't sit this one out, couldn't watch what was happening anymore. And I've met so many people running for office this year, and it's so exciting to see.
It is exciting.
How different this year is, how different the people who are running are.
Exactly.
And I love that. So it's a blue wave, it's a pink wave. We are going to take back the House, but so exciting just to see how many everyday average Americans said enough is enough, I'm going to fight. And one woman asked me recently, one reporter, she said, "When did you decide to run as yourself?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean? Who else would I run as?" And she said, she was very serious. And she said, "Did you make a strategic decision to talk about yourself and your children and your family and your issues?"
Interesting.
And I said, "No." I said, "This is who I am. This is why I'm running." And I just talk about these things. And when you have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, you can't really separate mommy and politician. So you just talk about it all at once. And that's what's exciting, and that's what's going to change our political system, is because all of these people are running. And we're going to see an entire new group of people running in 2020. We've already seen, because of this FEC ruling, women in 7 different states have put in similar requests at the state level. And in many cases, it's been approved. So that kind of breaks down barriers to get more people running. And I'm excited to be part of that wave.
It's exciting.
It really
it's exciting.
It's inspiring.
It really
is. To see all of these people talking about these issues because we get them, because we live them every day. And it's nice to see the authenticity of so many people who are running. And just, I mean, being real about who they are. When we see it with Stacey Abrams, she's talking about her debt and why she has this debt and why it makes her more qualified.
That's right. And they were trying to bash her on that.
They were trying to bash her, and she wrote this incredible op-ed, and I saw her speak the other day, and it was so moving and so inspiring. And that's who I'm excited to be running with. People like that.
It is. It's exciting. So how can people reach you or contribute to your campaign? You can look at it there and tell people how to help.
How to help. We have 33 days left. We need all the help we can get. We need volunteers to knock on doors, and we need people to make contributions, because this, again, is a grassroots campaign funded by people across this district. You can go to our website. It's liubaforcongress.com. So it's LIUBA for Congress.com. And sign up, get involved, come to a meet and greet, come to a roundtable, make a contribution, whatever you can chip in, $5, $10, $15, everything helps. And come knock on doors, because that's how we win this district.
Bobby, can you just put up the, I have the contact information for Liuba. While we're viewing that, I just wanted to ask, how can students get involved?
We had over the summer, we had more than 50 fellows. All were students, high school students, college students. We have fellowship opportunities. You can work in fields, you can work in finance. We will train you, teach you how to be involved in a campaign. It's been so exciting to see how engaged these students have become.
Is it too late for them to?
Not at all.
Okay.
You can sign up on the website and let us know that you're interested in a fellowship, and we will have our field organizers contact you.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. Because I have some you know, I'm going to talk to some of the social studies teachers and see if they have any students that might be interested in getting, you know, in getting involved. That would be great.
It's incredible to see the excitement and the energy. You walk into our campaign office, there are young people running around doing everything.
You need the young people.
It's amazing. I love walking into the campaign, any campaign office. You walk into any of the three, and it's just full of engaged, energized students and people who are retired, people from all walks of life. I love our offices.
That's awesome. So I want to thank you so much for being on Conversations with Verdel Jones.
Thank you for
I wish you luck, you know, for your run. We will be out there voting. You know, everyone in the house is signed up and ready to go. So
amazing. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. So thank you, everybody, for watching Conversations with Verdel Jones, and we will see you next time.